Welcome to another insightful episode. Today we dive into a topic that affects us all, but few fully comprehend: the national debt. This colossal sum, an aggregate of the United States' outstanding debt, has been skyrocketing, reaching staggering figures that boggle the mind. We're talking about trillions of dollars, a number so vast it's hard to visualize. But what does this monumental debt truly signify? Is it a measure of our nation's financial health, or is it a ticking time bomb? There's no denying that the national debt is a complex and multifaceted issue, often shrouded in economic jargon and political rhetoric. Yet understanding its nature is crucial, for it has the potential to impact our economy and, by extension, our lives in profound ways. Stay tuned as we unravel the intricacies of the national debt, breaking it down into digestible pieces and exploring its implications for our collective future. The national debt isn't just a figure, it's a complex web of obligations and assets. This statement might seem intimidating at first, but let's break it down to understand it better. At its core, the national debt comprises two main components: public debt and intergovernmental holdings. Public debt refers to the money borrowed by the government through the issuance of securities to various investors. Intergovernmental holdings, on the other hand, are debts that the government owes to itself, often in the form of trust funds like Social Security and Medicare. Now, how does this debt accumulate? Well, it's fairly simple. When the government's expenditure exceeds its revenue, primarily tax income, it borrows money to cover the gap. This is known as a budget deficit, and over time, these deficits pile up to form the national debt. The key contributors to the national debt include military spending, healthcare costs, and interest payments on the existing debt. These components, especially healthcare and interest payments, are expected to grow significantly in the future, further propelling the debt. To provide some context, let's journey back in time. In the aftermath of World War II, the US national debt was at an all-time high, standing at over 100% of the gross domestic product. However, the following decades of economic expansion reduced the debt relative to the size of the economy. More recently, the debt has been on an upward trajectory, reaching levels not seen since the war. But it's crucial to remember that debt isn't inherently bad. Throughout history, debt has financed wars, infrastructure, and social programs, playing a key role in shaping the nation. It's when the debt grows faster than the economy that concerns arise. So, the national debt isn't just a number. It's a reflection of our past decisions, present circumstances, and future obligations. It's a measure of how much we've borrowed to finance our collective aspirations and challenges. Understanding the debt is the first step to grappling its implications. There's a lot of misinformation about the national debt. Let's set the record straight. First and foremost, let's address the elephant in the room. The notion that a country with a high national debt is necessarily broke is a prevailing myth that needs to be debunked. What we need to understand is that unlike personal or corporate debt, national debt doesn't operate in the same way. Countries don't go bankrupt in the same manner individuals or businesses do. Contrary to popular belief, carrying some amount of national debt can actually be beneficial for a country. It's a tool that governments use to stimulate the economy, fund infrastructure projects, and invest in the future. Debt can help to smooth out economic cycles, propelling growth during downturns and maintaining stability in prosperous times. However, it's important to remember that not all debt is created equal. Productive debt, used to invest in things like education, infrastructure, and technology, can lead to long-term growth. On the other hand, non-productive debt, such as excessive military spending or poorly designed social programs, can drain resources without providing much in return. Another common myth is the belief that future generations will be burdened with paying off our debt. In reality, the national debt is largely an internal matter, with the majority of it owed to American individuals and institutions. The debt is more of an accounting tool, representing a redistribution of resources rather than an actual burden on future generations. Lastly, the idea that foreign countries like China own most of the US debt is a misconception. While it's true that foreign entities own a portion of our debt, the majority is held domestically, and even the portion held by foreign entities doesn't give them leverage over the US, as some might believe. In conclusion, while a high national debt can pose challenges and risks, it doesn't necessarily mean the country is broke. It's a complex issue that requires a nuanced understanding. So the next time you hear someone say that the US is broke because of its debt, remember that it's not as straightforward as it seems. Debt isn't always a bad word, but it's not without its complexities. The national debt isn't just a number, it's a reflection of our economic reality. Economic complexities related to the national debt are as abundant as they are fascinating. Let's unravel a few of these intricacies. A continuously rising debt has potential risks and consequences that can ripple through an economy. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill, growing larger and faster with each rotation. That's the essence of the national debt's compounding interest. The more we borrow, the more we owe. The more we owe, the more interest we pay. And the more interest we pay, the less we have for investments in areas like infrastructure or education. This, in turn, can lead to slower economic growth. But let's be clear, economic growth isn't just about numbers, it's about people. It's about jobs, wages, and the quality of life. So when the debt grows faster than the economy, it can lead to a decrease in per capita income and a lower standard of living. Now, some economists argue that a high national debt isn't necessarily a harbinger of economic collapse. They point to countries like Japan, which has one of the highest debt to GDP ratios in the world, yet continues to maintain a high standard of living. These economists argue that as long as a country can continue to service its debt, the size of the debt itself isn't a problem. On the other hand, there are those who warn that the path of ever-increasing debt is unsustainable. They fear that if the debt continues to grow unchecked, it could lead to an economic crisis. This could happen if investors start doubting a country's ability to repay its debt and demand higher interest rates, leading to a vicious cycle of increasing debt and economic instability. So, is the national debt a ticking time bomb, or is it a manageable part of a larger economic picture? The answer isn't black and white. It's a complex blend of shades of grey. The debt's impact on the economy is complex and far-reaching. The national debt isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. So how does the national debt affect you, your neighbour, your community? Let's dive into that. The national debt in its colossal scale may seem abstract and distant. However, its effects can trickle down to the average citizen in a few ways. The most direct impact is on government services and social programs. As the debt increases, the government has to spend a larger proportion of its budget on interest payments, leaving less for other areas. This could mean less funding for education, healthcare, infrastructure, and other public services that directly affect your quality of life. Now imagine this scenario. You're a retiree relying on Social Security. But as the debt grows, the government has less money to fund these programs. This could mean reduced benefits or delayed payments. It's not just retirees who are affected. Lower-income families who rely on government assistance could also feel the pinch. Let's turn our attention to public infrastructure. Roads, bridges, schools, hospitals. These aren't just physical structures, they're the backbone of our communities. Reduced funding due to high national debt could lead to deterioration in these areas, impacting the quality of life for everyone. But it's not just about reduced services and crumbling infrastructure. High national debt can lead to economic instability, which could impact the day-to-day lives of citizens. For instance, it could lead to higher inflation rates, making everyday items more expensive. Or it could result in higher interest rates, making it harder to get a loan for a house or a car. In conclusion, the national debt doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its effects can be felt in the pocketbooks of average citizens, in the services they rely on, and in the infrastructure of their communities. The debt doesn't just affect Wall Street, it affects Main Street too. The national debt may seem insurmountable, but solutions have been proposed. Some experts advocate for fiscal prudence, suggesting a combination of tax reforms, spending cuts, and economic growth strategies. This could include broadening the tax base, reducing wasteful expenditures, or investing in sectors that drive productivity. However, implementing these solutions is not without challenges. Policy changes can be politically contentious and may have unintended economic consequences. For instance, drastic spending cuts could result in reduced public services, while significant tax increases could potentially hinder economic growth. Others propose a more radical framework, modern monetary theory, which posits that countries with their own currencies can't go broke and should spend as needed to ensure full employment and economic stability. As we look toward the future, the economic trajectory remains uncertain, the national debt continues to be a complex issue intertwined with political, economic, and social factors. The future of the debt ultimately lies in our collective hands. We've covered a lot of ground today on the topic of national debt. We've delved deep into the components of the US national debt, debunked common myths, and explored its economic ramifications. We've even looked at how it might impact the average citizen's quality of life. We've also touched on potential solutions and pondered the future economic trajectory. In essence, the national debt is a complex issue, deeply woven into the fabric of our economy. Its implications are far-reaching and multifaceted, affecting everything from government services and social programs to the stability of our financial system. But does it signify that the US is broke? Well, that's a question with no easy answers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the debt is a ticking time bomb or a manageable challenge? Share your insights and opinions in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going. Don't forget to subscribe for more content from Goat Investment and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.